Good evening, councillors. I will commence the meeting with the prayer. May we, the councillors of Ku-ring-gai, always be aware that decisions we make affect the daily lives of those we represent. May we make these decisions with knowledge and goodwill, respecting the views of others, and may we show ourselves worthy to follow in the footsteps of those who have protected the special qualities of Ku-ring-gai for over 100 years. Amen. On behalf of Council, I recognise the traditional custodians of the land and pay tribute to Elders past and present. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the November Ku-ring-gai Council meeting. Due to the COVID-19 situation, this council meeting will be held remotely. Before the meeting begins, I will outline a few points regarding this evening's proceedings. During the meeting, councillors will appear on screen. Staff will only appear on screen if questions are directed to them by the council. Tonight's meeting will be delivered by live streaming on the council website at www.kmc.nsw.gov.au/live stream. The webcast of the meeting will remain on the website. The live stream will commence once the Mayor is seated and will cease if Council goes into a confidential session where the public and the press are excluded, pursuant to Section 10A of the Local Government Act. Council meetings remain open to the public online, but speakers now address the Council through the monthly public forums and not at Council meetings. Again, due to the COVID-19 situation, the public forum preceding this Council meeting did not occur as normal. However, the public were encouraged to send in video, audio or written submissions. For more information about addressing Council during COVID-19, please visit our website at www.kmc.nsw.gov.au. All present tonight must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the Council's Code of Conduct, or making other potentially defamatory statements. Councillors and Council staff must declare and manage any conflicts of interest they may have in relation to any item of business that is the subject of the meeting agenda this evening. We move now to apologies. Councillors, are there any apologies? I think everyone is present.
Madam Mayor, I can't see Councillor Smith unless he's hiding.
Ah, is that right? Sorry, I've got
He is here.
Yes, Councillor Smith,
Right.
is here.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Councillor Chateau.
Thank you. General Manager, are there any staff apologies?
There are none, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any declarations of interest? None. General Manager, are there any staff declarations?
None from the staff, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. General Manager, documents circulated to councillors, please.
Madam Mayor and councillors, there are two sets of greens. The first being the dark greens, a late agenda, which contains Mayoral Minute 2, Barley Deborah Hutchins, former Mayor of Lane Cove. And the light greens, late councillors' information, contains a memorandum from the Mayor in relation to MM1, outdoor dining, which responds to correspondence received from the Office of Local Government.
Thank you. General Manager, would you also list items to be considered in the meeting?
Madam Mayor and councillors, no reports per se, but attachments 1 and 2 in relation to GB12, management of Crown land by council.
Councillors, I seek a motion that those materials remain confidential. Moved Councillor Greenfield, seconded Councillor Pettit. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Councillors, we move to confirmation of the minutes, And I seek a motion to confirm the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 20th of October 2020. Moved Councillor Kelly, seconded Councillor Greenfield. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
No, I object to the minutes.
Sorry?
I object to the minutes, so it's not unanimous.
Sorry, Councillor Nye. I'll read those off then. Could councillors please raise their hand if they are in favour of the minutes? That is councillors Greenfield, Chateau, Clark. Oh, there's quite a few. Smith, Kelly, Anderson. Against is councillors Nye, Kay, and Spencer and Pettit. Thank you. That is carried. We move to minutes from the Mayor, and we start with MM1, outdoor dining.
Point of order.
Councillor Kelly, was that?
Yes, Chair, it's a point of order for this this particular item.
Yes.
I, pursuant to clause or to paragraph 9.9 of the Code of Meeting Practice, which states, and I'm going to quote from the Code of Meeting Practice here, a mayoral minute must not be used to put without notice matters that are routine and not urgent, or matters for which proper notice should be given because of their complexity. For the purpose of this clause, a matter will be urgent where it requires a decision by the council before the next scheduled ordinary meeting of the council, unquote. And I believe this mayoral minute contents would satisfy paragraph 9.3 and should be brought into the meeting at the end of the meeting at the appropriate time for these items, which is in fact business matters requiring business without notice. I beg your pardon.
Well, Councillor Kelly, I can't see the substance of this because it is with notice. It's printed in the business papers, but I'll refer your concern to the General Manager.
Well, Madam Mayor, if this is with notice, it should just be a GB item and not a mayoral minute in that event.
Again, I think that's incorrect, but I'll refer your concern to the General Manager.
Madam Mayor and councillors, I agree the item is actually printed in the business paper, but I will defer to the corporate lawyer if he has any additional comments.
Mr. Taylor.
Oh. Madam Mayor, councillors, the mayoral minute is correctly placed in the business paper as a mayoral minute rather than general business item. General business items are matters put before the council by the General Manager, whereas a mayoral minute is a minute brought before the council by the Mayor, which he is entitled to do as chair of the meeting. And it's correct to say that notice of the business has been given by the fact that it's been published in the business paper.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We will move on. That's not a point of order. The mayoral minute, MM1 outdoor dining.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. Could I just ask a question of the the corporate lawyer, please, in relation to his interpretation
Yes.
with regards to the point of order?
Yes, Councillor Spencer, further to the point of order, your question.
This is through you, Madam Mayor, to the corporate lawyer. What's the distinction between this and your previous interpretation that was raised in MM1 in the previous meeting? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if the councillor could be asked to clarify his question, I'm not quite sure what he's referring to.
If I may.
Insert.
In the last meeting, I believe Councillor Kelly raised the issue of 9.9, and I do recall that you said that if he were to raise 9.9 as a point of order, he should raise it at the meeting, not at the rescission, if that would refresh your memory. So my question is, what's the distinction between that being captured under 9.9 and not this one? Thank you.
Madam, thank you, Councillor Spencer. Mayor and councillors, the point that I recall making in the previous meeting was that if a procedural point about adequacy of notices to be made, it needs to be raised prior to council dealing with the business. It's not relevant to a rescission motion at a subsequent meeting. In that case, notice of the business in the mayor's minute had been given by virtue of a report on the same subject being the subject of notice, and therefore that subject matter was properly before the meeting.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, if I may seek his clarification.
Councillor Spencer.
I do recall, corporate lawyer, that you said that 9.9 you agreed with Councillor Kelly that that he raised 9.9 correctly, that the mayoral minute should not be something that's substantive, and that the point of order should have been raised at the meeting, not at the rescission. So my question to you is that Councillor Kelly has now raised the 9.9 at the commencement of this mayoral minute. So it is substantive, but in nature. And my question is that what's the distinction between the substance of this mayoral minute and the other one?
Mayor and councillors, the issue at the previous meeting was about the requirement for notice, and I agree with Councillor Kelly in raising that there was a need for notice, but in the facts of that particular item of business, notice had been given by virtue of the business paper containing a report on the subject of the mayoral minute. In the present case, notice has been given of the mayoral minute in the business paper. So I don't really understand
okay.
the other parallel between
all right.
matter and the previous point of order.
Okay, I will not engage in this for long. Perhaps you didn't understand my question. My question is that what's the distinction between that 9.9 and this 9.9 in your interpretation? My question wasn't about notice. You agreed with Councillor Kelly at the time that he rightfully raised 9.9. However, it was at the wrong period of time. It should be raised at the commencement of the mayoral minute. And so Councillor Kelly is doing that right now. And you are talking about notice, but I believe 9.9 refers, it's a bit broader than just notice. It's about the substance as well. And the notice has to do with substance. And for instance, there are accounts and there are budget and there are operational matters and all those things. That's counted as notice as well. It's not just about printing the paper.
Madam Mayor and councillors, the issue of notice always, whether notice is required, will arise in relation to any business before the council. The previous instance that Councillor Spence is referring to was an instance where the adequacy of notice had been raised as an argument regarding the rescission of that decision at a subsequent meeting. The point of order, as I understand it tonight, is whether required notice of the mayoral minute has been given, and I can advise the council, in my opinion, it has been by virtue of being included in the published business paper.
Thank you, corporate lawyer, and thank you, Madam Mayor, for your indulgence. I think the corporate lawyer has clarified the question.
He has.
Thank you.
There is no point of order. Therefore, we move on with MM1 outdoor dining. The mayoral minute is as printed, except for the addition of E, and perhaps the staff could get that up on the screen. There is an E that's been added, and that states that council expresses an interest in participating in the streamlined outdoor dining proposal. And that is because subsequent to the mayoral minute being lodged, the Minister for Local Government issued information on the 4th of November, and there is an opportunity for council to engage in the project that the Minister is talking about. So that's the Minister's statement there on the 4th of November. So the recommendation has an additional E. I won't read out the whole mayoral minute because it, I believe, is self-explanatory, and we have a number of our community already expressing an interest in how council can support outdoor dining. So I will move the recommendation A, B, C, D as printed and with the additional E, and I invite councillors to speak on this matter, should they wish. Councillor Shadow.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to speak briefly in support of this. My observation is that it's a shame that we are not dealing with the St John's Avenue outdoor dining experience more quickly. But I noticed that the work in Wade Lane will begin in the third quarter. That's sent from January next year. But the actual St John's Avenue component won't be going out for tender until the last quarter of the financial year. And this is about outdoor dining. And unfortunately, we're dependent on Ausgrid approval for the relocation of overhead power lines. I'm not suggesting that you add an F to this, that we urgently seek Ausgrid approval for the relocation of overhead power lines, but I would like to ask Director Benassi what the possibilities are, because that is a whole new dining precinct, really, which feeds into your mayoral minute. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Director Benassi.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Shadow. Director Benassi, you may be able to assist.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we are referring to the outdoor dining, Councillor Chateau, in which particular location? We're talking Gordon?
Yes, definitely Gordon.
Yeah, so Madam Mayor, through you, Madam Mayor, I'm responsible for the delivery of the outdoor dining project. At this current stage, we are in the process of design development. Meeting prior to this and community consultation with the local cafe precinct or shop precinct would be best referred to Director Watson. So at this current stage, we're in design development, looking to commence with a proposal to commence work early next financial year.
Thank you, Director. Following on from Councillor Shadow's question, because of the interest by our community and the concerns over COVID-19 and public health safety, I presume that you are saying there is no opportunity to do this work sooner than is already scheduled.
Madam Mayor, that is correct. At this current stage, where there is a significant amount of work to be done with the design of undergrounding the power. Stage 1 of the work will commence in Wade Lane next year. Stage 2 will follow through on St John's, and that will follow at a later stage next financial year. So, with regards to putting the whole documentation together, tendering the works, reporting back to council for adoption, at this stage it will be considered mid next year to late next year for a commencement.
Yes, thank you, Director Vanessa. Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question was, where are we in the in seeking approval from Ausgrid for relocation of the overhead power lines? Have we commenced that yet, or is that at a later stage?
Through you, Madam Mayor, at this stage we are in design development. Once we have a proposed design to submit to Ausgrid, Ausgrid will assess that based on its merits. So at this stage, Councillor Chateau, it's not in, the design has not been submitted for approval. That is more than likely will occur in the coming months.
Thank you. I wish it could happen more quickly, but I think we're doing our best. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Chateau. And certainly the thrust of the Minister for Local Government is, I believe, to try and find locations where there isn't a great deal of work to be done, where perhaps opportunistically it might be a suitable setting for outdoor dining. And that there may be opportunities to fast track those sort of suitable locations. Obviously, the Eat Street at Gordon will require extensive physical works. So hopefully there are some alternative locations where we can assist the community and shopkeepers in a speedier fashion. The next speaker is Councillor Spencer. Councillor Spencer, you're on mute.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, this is a good initiative, and I am actually very supportive. I do, however, have to reiterate that I am against mayoral minutes to be used in such a manner. And I do note that we discussed it earlier, and perhaps Councillor Kelly, if he would have presented his point of order more accurately, then the corporate lawyer would have then addressed the issue more comprehensively. Now, once again, I think this is a good initiative. However, I think the form is incorrect. It should be in a form of a notice of motion instead of a mayoral minute. Thank you.
Well, Councillor Spencer, this has already been dealt with by the corporate lawyer. The mayoral minute is being used in a perfectly appropriate manner. So you would be wise not to repeat your views that have been already addressed by the corporate lawyer as being incorrect. So
I can address my views as I wish.
No.
Yes, I can. You can't once again, Madam Mayor, tell me a rule where I cannot express my view. Name me one rule and I will withdraw.
Point of order, and it has been answered, and there was no point of order. So you do.
No, this is my speech. I can say what I like in my speech. It is consistent with the rule.
Made as a point of order, which is not.
No, it is a rule. There is no rule.
Councillor Spencer.
There is no provision for you to say that I cannot speak. Just like last time, no provision for you to say I can't speak.
You cannot speak to a matter that has already been ruled upon. There is no problem with this mayoral minute being adopted.
Oh, no. I'm speaking to the mayoral minute. I'm not speaking to the point of order.
You were, Councillor Spencer. Move on and talk about something else other than the manner this mayoral minute.
I did. I said that it's a good initiative. It is an abuse of process. It should be in a mayoral. It shouldn't be in a mayoral minute. Simple. And you should move on too, Madam Mayor.
Said it is not.
You should move on too. Thank you.
You are out of order, Councillor.
How am I out of order? I'm suggesting that
I
you
am
move on.
chairing the meeting. You are out of order, and the corporate lawyer has said this is a legitimate process. Is there another
Nonsense.
speaker on this matter? If not, I will put this mayoral minute. All those in favour. That is Councillors Greenfield, Chatto, Clark, Nye, Pettit, Smith, Anderson. Against Councillors Kay and Spencer and Councillor Kelly. That is carried. We move to the second mayoral minute, which is a valet for Deborah Hutchins. As councillors will know, this has been a very sad announcement across the northern suburbs. So I will read this to honour Deborah Hutchins, former Mayor of Lane Cove Council. 8th of April 1947 to 2nd of November 2020. It is my sad duty to inform my councillor colleagues in the Ku-ring-gai community of the untimely death of Deborah Hutchins, former Mayor of Lane Cove. Deborah was a distinguished local government representative on Sydney's North Shore, who was first elected to Lane Cove Council in 2012 and subsequently served as Deputy Mayor. By 2015, she had become Mayor and served in the role for 2 years until 2017. During this time, she oversaw the creation of The Canopy, one of the most far-reaching urban renewal projects Lane Cove Council has ever undertaken. This visionary project was officially opened in June this year, providing the Lane Cove community with new open space, playgrounds, a 500-space car park, retail and entertainment. Deborah Hutchins had a strong history of volunteer and representative roles with council and community organisations. This included Lane Cove Historical Society, Lane Cove Art Society, Longueville Tennis Club, Longueville Sporting Club and Sydney Community Services. As Ku-ring-gai Council's representative, I was privileged to serve alongside Deborah on the Northern Sydney Regional Organisation of Councils. I found her to be a warm and compassionate person who could bring people together for the common good. During her time on Lane Cove Council, Deborah was involved with new initiatives including International Women's Day and the Lane Cove Night Out events, supporting the Hold My Hand event and establishing the Lane Cove Festival by the River, which has been enjoyed by thousands of people each year. Deborah Hutchins was still serving as a councillor at Lane Cove at the time of her death, and the council has issued the following tribute to her. Lane Cove was fortunate to have Deborah at the helm as both councillor and as mayor. Deborah was a pleasure to work with and was always respectful of the range of views that a single project could bring. Her patience and calm demeanour helped lead the way as we navigated the best outcome. Council and the community are most grateful for Deborah's commitment to Lane Cove. Her legacy will live on in a range of projects that came to fruition thanks to Deb. On behalf of Ku-ring-gai Council and our community, I offer sincere condolences to Deborah's family and her many friends and her councillor colleagues. May she rest in peace. And I am moving the recommendation A, that the mayoral minute be received and noted, and B, that we stand for a minute's silence to honour Deborah Hutchins. And I think anybody who knew Deborah found that she was an extremely vibrant woman. It is just such a tragedy that a person like Deborah has been struck down by stroke. And I know her family would be grateful for any donations to stroke charities. She was honoured at last week's NESROC meeting for her contribution to NESROC as well. And I invite any councillors who wish to comment on this valet. Councillor Shadow.
Yes, Madam Mayor, just very briefly, I came to know Deborah very well in my term as Mayor, the year I spent being as Mayor in 2015-16. And as you say, she was a vibrant personality. She was involved in the most sincere and interested way in everything that she did. And she made me feel very welcome, actually, into that cohort. So it is a tragedy. I was absolutely shocked when I heard of her death. She's my age, but I can tell you she looked about 15 years younger. It's just not fair, really. Not fair that she should go so soon. So, Vale Deborah.
Absolutely. I completely concur with you, Councillor Shadow, and I think everybody that knew her was quite shocked to learn of her real age. She was very youthful and vibrant. It is a terrible shame. Councillor Nye.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for preparing this Vale. I've personally not met Deborah Hutchins before, but from my very limited experience so far as a councillor, I know that each one of us make an enormous sacrifice to serve the community, and I'm more than happy to respect and honour her in this way, knowing that she too has served the community and made enormous sacrifices.
Thank you, Councillor Nye. If there are no further speakers, I will put that mayoral minute. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Would you please stand for a minute's silence? Thank you. Please be seated. We move on now, councillors, to petitions. Are there any petitions this evening? None. General business is next on our agenda, and I invite councillors to nominate any item on the agenda that they wish to have a site inspection. None. I invite councillors to nominate any item on the agenda that they wish to adopt in accordance with the officer's recommendation, allowing for minor changes without debate. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Why not give it a go? I'll start with GB1, the adoption of revised.
Withdrawn.
Yeah, figured. All right, GB2, council meeting and public forum dates for 2021, the officer's recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Greenfield. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
All right, GB3, minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee, the officer's recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Nye. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB4, the analysis of land environment court costs, the officer's recommendation.
I do have a question. I'm not withdrawing. If I may, just a question, please.
Yes, Councillor Spencer, question.
Seeking your clarification, Madam Mayor. I remember you declared a conflict of interest citing your son's employment in one of our law firms. Is that still current?
Yes, he does work in a law firm, but we're not making a decision on this. It's just a report to receive and note.
Thank you. And there's no conflict of interest in this one. Thank you. Is that correct? Just seeking your clarification.
That's right.
Thank you.
Is there a seconder for this? Seconded Councillor Kelly. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
All right. GB5, the investment report as of the 31st of October 2020. Officer's recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Greenfield. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB6, 2020-21 budget review. The officer's recommendation.
That is seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's unanimous.
GB7, funding of council infrastructure assets. The officer's recommendation.
That is seconded by Councillor Kay. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB8, Ku-ring-gai traffic committee meeting dates for 2021. The officer's recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Spencer. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB9, heritage reference committee minutes. The officer's recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Smith.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, could I?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. It's withdrawn, is it?
Who was that? Sorry.
I withdrew.
Councillor Kelly has withdrawn.
All right. GB10, management of Ku-ring-gai mini wheel sites and showground. The officer's recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Kay. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
Pretty surprised if I can do GB11. Let's go GB12. GB12, management of Crown land by council. The officer's recommendation.
And that is seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour? Is unanimous.
All right. I'll leave that there and see if anyone else wants to be brave enough to move anything else.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Councillor Spencer.
GB11, officer's recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Pettit. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Any others, councillors? If not, we will now go back to GB1,
Madam.
yes, GB1 and then GB9 after that. So GB1 was adopted, withdrawn by Councillor Kelly, and it is in relation to adoption of the revised Ku-ring-gai Community Participation Plan 2020, and I seek a motion, please. Councillor Clark, you've got your...
Yes, Madam Mayor.
You are moving the officer's recommendation, are you?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Is there a seconded by Councillor Smith? Councillor Clark, do you wish to speak to this?
I'll just speak very briefly in favour of it. It's pretty straightforward. We've already talked about this when we put it on public exhibition, or at least council passed to put it on public exhibition. And during that period, no submissions were received. It's not, well, there's no changes effectively to RCCP. It's really just amendment. And yeah, I'm quite comfortable putting it forward.
Thank you. Councillor Clark. Councillor Smith, the seconder, do you wish to speak to this?
I'm happy to reserve my right at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly, you're the next speaker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I withdrew this only to make a point about it. I'm not surprised there was no response from the public or the community about this. I'm not surprised also because when the council staff invited the councillors to engage with them about community consultation, only 2 of the councillors participated in that. And I think one of the things we do very badly in Ku-ring-gai is community consultation. And we saw that with the draft housing strategy, the uproar that caused. And that's not the only, they're just some examples. We see it a lot where, and some things we do very well, by the way. I shouldn't be entirely negative about it. I've seen and attended a lot of the community consultation events that we've held, and some of them have been done particularly well. But by and large, I think the community would think that we get it wrong. And I'm looking forward to seeing what it is that comes out of this participation plan when it is implemented, because I think you know, a lot of the community are disappointed with our performance in this area. And it's not that I'm speaking against it so much, it's just that I get this every day. I get people who say, gee whiz, we register as participants in a process, and let's say it's a development or an opposition to a development or whatever, and the council notes our participation, and then we never hear from them. They don't keep us up to date. We have to chase them at every turn to find out what's going on, and particularly when this is involves a court process, let's say the Land and Environment Court, some of the community members feel they get dropped out of the process and they are not consulted or not kept informed of the stages of the process, and when it's a tight timetable, they've given almost no time to respond, and every minute counts, and they're forever chasing the council for updates and whatever. So this is an area, I think, where we could, as a council, make ourselves look good in the eyes of the community. And it's not that difficult. It's just keeping people advised and informed and in the loop. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I may ask Director Mysick if he may be able to shed some light on these processes for the council and for the community, as mentioned by Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe there were two issues. The first issue was in relation to development applications. The process for consultation with the community is set out in the community participation plan, and it sets out the notification and engagement requirements with the community for each development based on its typology. So from developments that don't require any advertising or notification because of their minor nature, right through to those more complex applications that take quite an amount of time and a fair amount of work to assess and determine. The process as it stands, and it has been the process for some time, is that where applications are to be notified, the persons who are notified of that application are given and basically explain what the process is in writing, asked to make a submission. They're given a certain time frame to make that submission, depending on the size of the proposal, whether it's major or minor. Those submissions are acknowledged in writing by council, and the council then proceeds to assess the application. There's no further requirement to engage with the community other than if the matter is to proceed to a panel meeting for determination, then there is a specific requirement to basically notify those who made submissions and give them the opportunity to address the panel in terms of their concerns about a particular development proposal. I think there is probably a perception out there in the community that the residents should have a role in assessing applications, and that's sort of been our experience from time to time. That is not the role of the residents. The Act is very clear. The Environmental Planning Assessment Act is very clear as to what the process is and who is involved and who is not involved in assessing and determining an application. Council is fairly generous in terms of the time it affords to residents within the framework of our now to be adopted community participation plan as amended to make submissions. And if any member of the public wishes to discuss a proposal with Council's assessing officer, they are at liberty to do so. Our officers take time particularly with residents who don't understand the process, to try and explain to them so that they understand what their role is and what Council's role is and what the role would be of the panel, any panel, whether it's the regional panel, the local panel, in determining an application. In relation to appeals, well, it's a very different process, and it's a process that's dictated by the Land and Environment Court, not by Council. The timeframes in the Land and Environment Court are dictated by the court, again, not by Council. And when we have a situation, and it is quite often because the court is fairly busy, where the court wants something from council in a fairly short period of time, unfortunately the council must deliver. There's no saying no to the Land Environment Court, or we don't have time, or could you give us another couple of weeks? That just doesn't work that way. In terms of the involvement of resident objectors to a proposal that's the subject of an Land Environment Court appeal, where that is known, and that is always known because of the fact that it's recorded, council solicitors routinely contact objectors and invite them to make their submissions as part of the evidence that's submitted to the court. That is where a formal hearing is taking place. However, when you're dealing with a preliminary Section 34 conference, which is basically designed to try and get the two parties, an applicant and council, to come together in terms of an agreed outcome, that is a without prejudice process. So unfortunately, resident objectors can't participate in that, and some of them, unfortunately, from time to time have difficulty accepting that, but that is the nature of the beast. I'd also like to ask Council's corporate lawyer if he wishes to add anything further to that explanation.
Thank you, Director. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. In relation to Land Environment Court appeals, what Director Mysick has said is correct. What I might just add is that the Section 34 conferences that are under Section 34 of the Land Environment Court Act are a without prejudice process, a mediation process that the council and the applicant are required to take part in. The fact is that these conferences are rarely over in one day. They are often subject to adjournment while an applicant prepares amendments in seeking to solve problems with their proposal. It's not uncommon for Section 34 conferences to actually continue for some months. Now, during that period, because it's a without prejudice process, council is not permitted to actually disclose to residents anything going on in that conference. So it's not until the conference is concluded that we're actually able to write to the residents and report to them the outcome, either the matter's resolved or that it hasn't resolved and it's proceeding to hearing, and telling them when the hearing date will be set. So the system does impose restrictions on council's ability to communicate with residents for quite significant parts of the duration of the litigation. Thank you, Mayor and Councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor, and I hope that's helpful to residents perhaps watching this live stream, and also to councillors who may be able to impart some of that information to concerned residents, because it's perfectly understandable that they want to participate as much as they can, but there are some constraints. Councillor Kelly, do you
yes, I wanted to ask a question of Director Malkovich, please.
Yes, certainly.
Madam Mayor, it's following on from that, and just by virtue of what you just said a second ago, it kind of harks back to the community participation thing, but not really. Director Malkovich, is okay if I touch base with you offline, perhaps during the week, because I think there is some benefit to be had from perhaps a better understanding of the process, simply because in the last few months, I've been representing a few groups and I've been taking up a lot of the corporate lawyers' time over things like this, where they've probably misunderstood the process or not, I don't know, but perhaps you and I can work out a process by which I can give these people a greater understanding of the limitations that we operate under, and also to make sure that we remove any unrealistic expectation, I guess, on their part. And this is a large number of people, so they funnel through one or two spokespersons to me, and of course I end up bending the corporate lawyer's ear for hours and hours and hours on end when probably it could be avoided. So if I could take that up with you offline, perhaps.
Madam Mayor, through you, more than happy to do that.
Tremendous. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Nye.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support this community participation plan, but I just wanted to make some comments for our own personal reference and potential future improvement. One is sometimes when we say we'll give 14 days of notice or 28 days of notice, sometimes I hear from residents that although, say, 14 days was offered to them, they didn't receive the letter until 4 days beforehand, leaving very little time to actually prepare a response, that sort of thing. So just as something for us as a council to work on, if we are saying 14 days or 28 days, then we try to expedite the postage as soon as possible. Does that mean delivering it by hand? Does that mean sending it out prior to the 28 days? I don't know, but that's just something to work on. Another thing is, I think like there's notification types A, B, C, D, and E and F, but I think in a future version, not this one, but a future one, maybe we could have a type G where we have a development of a certain scale, a certain threshold that we think will interest an entire suburb. Perhaps a much wider group should be notified. And we have ways of doing that already. We've got the website, we've got emails, we've got hopefully in the future our bus shelters, things like that. But yeah, that's something to consider and work on in the future as well. But I'm happy to support the current version, and I acknowledge that if there's ever something that's quite controversial, we as councillors are in a position to, and the council staff as well are in a position to cast the net wider than what's specified specifically in this document.
Thank you, Councillor Nye, and certainly I received an email along a similar theme from a resident only today, I believe, commenting that the changes that have been made by Australia Post to frequency of deliveries may have a significantly negative impact on meeting timelines for submissions. Of course, we do know that our staff continue to accept submissions right until they complete reports. So they do give that latitude, but it is something to be mindful that we keep a watch on the impacts of decisions that are made by entities such as Australia Post, because we do have a large older population that may not be as computer savvy and may rely on snail mail, as they call it. So I'm sure that the staff will keep a watch on difficulties that may arise from these sort of external changes. Councillor Spencer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question to Director Mausik in relation to posting notifications, if I may.
Yeah.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Director Mausik, if you will recall, there were several issues in relation to late receipt of notification. And I do understand postal evidence rule and so on, and perhaps some of the councillors here were not exactly relating to that. My question has nothing to do with that. My question is whether that issue of sending it out late has been addressed. Yeah, if you would recall, we discussed that last time during the Ku-ring-gai matter.
Yep. Councillor Spencer, I do recall that very vividly. It is a problem. Obviously, COVID-19 has had an impact on everyone, and that doesn't exclude Australia Post. And so, obviously, council has been impacted by that. And it's not a case of council being impacted on every single occasion, but it does happen from time to time, and Australia Post acknowledged that. So the way, and we have been working on a way around that. Now, obviously, electronic is the best way of delivering because it's instant, and you're not relying on another party to actually deliver a letter, and there could be all sorts of potential risks and hazards associated with that. We're currently working on a process to obviate that problem, and we're hopeful in the coming, say, 3 to 4 weeks to have a process that will not disadvantage shall we say, any potential objectors to a development application simply because of the actions, or rather lack of action by Australia Post.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, if there are no further speakers on this matter, I'll ask Councillor Clark if he wishes to sum up.
I'm all right, Madam Mayor. I believe
Thank you,
it's all good.
We'll put your motion, the officer's recommendation. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We now move to GB9, Heritage Reference Committee minutes, and I seek a motion. Councillor Shatto.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to put forward the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. It's seconded by Councillor Smith. Would you like to speak to this, Councillor Shatto?
No, I don't believe there's anything to be said. I've read it and it seems to make sense to me. I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Smith as seconder.
Madam Mayor, I believe it's pretty straightforward for everybody, and I'd like to see it go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer, you're the next speaker.
Thank you. I actually have a couple of questions, and that's it. My question is to the officer as to why the minutes come back so late. For instance, 3rd of July 2019, 7 July 2020, and the one in September 2020, that's perhaps acceptable. But why are they not like contemporaneous, like, you know, they should come back in the following meeting or the next available meeting? That's my question.
Thank you. I will refer that to Director Watson, who may have Mr. Fabro available also.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm quite happy to have a first shot at that question, and then Mr. Fabro can fill in any gaps.
All right, Director.
It is custom and practice that we would wait for the committee to actually endorse the minutes before referring them back. And as councillors have been made aware over a number of items, particularly in relation to access to buildings, we did have a shortage of staff in that area until fairly recently. But certainly we don't send minutes back until they've been endorsed by the committee. And councillors would also be aware that in terms of some minutes from last year, the Office of Local Government in fact asked us not to deal with minutes for a protected period of time.
Madam Mayor, if I may seek further clarification.
Mr. Fabro, did you want to add to that before I take further questions?
No, Madam Mayor, Director Watson has covered off on that adequately. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Spencer.
I just require the answers to be in step, if I may. Like, for instance, the one in 3rd July. When was that endorsed? And then 7 July 20. I'm sorry, 3rd July 2019, when that was endorsed by the committee. And then 7 July 2020 and so on. Thank you.
Director Watson.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I defer to Mr. Fabro on that matter, but I would have thought that the dates for those matters were confirmed would have been appearing in the minutes.
Mr. Fabro.
Yes, through you, Mayor, Madam Councillors, in relation to the meeting of the Heritage Reference Committee on Wednesday, the 3rd of July, they were considered, I'm pretty sure, in the August meeting of the Heritage Reference Committee. It's usually the month following that they're endorsed, but certainly it was noted there was a delay in getting those meetings notes from 3rd of July. They were overlooked, and that was noted in the officer's report. But it's normally, the practice is the following month that they're put to the Heritage Reference Committee for endorsement.
Thank you.
Sorry, and there's 7 July 2020. It's just for clarity's sake, that's all.
I don't have those dates in front of me, but I could take those on notice in terms of when they were actually endorsed by the reference committee. But it's usually, as I said, the month following the original meeting.
All right, if I may, Madam Mayor, ask that Mr. Fabio follow up through email as to when they were endorsed, and if there were delays as to why it took a few months for it to come back.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I had the same questions, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry. I should have taken my hand down.
That's all right. Councillor Nye.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question through you to the relevant officer. So Council has a number of committees. I'm just wondering which committees have their agenda and minutes put up on the website versus which ones don't. So if I look, for example, the Traffic Committee, we see the agenda and the minutes online. The Flood Risk Committee, we sometimes have the minutes online, for example, 2019, but 2020, there's no agenda or minutes. What about the Heritage Reference Committee? Should we be having a practice of putting up the agenda online or putting up the minutes online before or after, that sort of thing? I'm just trying to look for a pattern or best practice. Just comment on what we should be doing going forward.
Director Watson, do you want to respond to that?
I will, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Mayor. The substantive difference between the Traffic Committee is that it's a formal committee of council and the other committees are only reference committees. And it's not custom and practice to put reference committee matters on the website, because it may certainly gives members of the public access to information potentially in advance of councillors. And the same would apply to the Heritage Reference Committee. Quite often they're dealing with sensitive matters that haven't actually been to the council first. So if you take the Flood Risk Management Committee, for example, they will be dealing with a flood study that council may in fact not determine is appropriate to go out on exhibition in the form it is. So that's the difference between the two matters, Councillor Nye.
Okay, thanks for that. And just to further clarify, I see the minutes of some of our Flood Risk Committee meetings from 2019, but nothing from 2020. So is there a certain point at which we go, what's sort of a reference committee, let's put the minutes up after a few months after, and should we do the same with Heritage a few months after, and after everyone's sort of voted on relevant matters?
Quite happy to do that, Councillor Nye. We do it as a matter of course with the Flood Risk Management Committee after matters have been determined by council. Quite happy to do that in relation to Heritage as well.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Kay.
Okay, through you, Madam Mayor, just to the relevant director, I just want clarity. Are all councillors able to attend all committees? Because as far as I was aware, they are, at least in the observer capacity, because I haven't ever received an invitation to be able to attend this Heritage Committee. So if I could have some clarity on that, that would be appreciated.
Director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can't speak to the notice that's given for the meetings, but you'll notice that there is a report going on the December meeting of council establishing dates for the Heritage Committee for next year. But certainly it's open to any councillor to attend, and some of them, as far as I'm aware, have in the past attended.
Okay, I don't know why, but I haven't received an advice in relation to when they're on or attendance. So I don't know if any of the other councillors could back me up on that, to whether they have or not. Maybe I'm excluded for some unknown reason. So I'm just not receiving the invitations as such. So I'm not aware that they're actually on.
Yes, I think the staff send them out to the members of the committee, but we can potentially ask the staff to notify all councillors should they wish to attend as observers.
Yeah, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Madam Mayor, I actually sit on the Heritage Reference Committee. And I'm actually very happy for any councillor that wants to know when it's sitting. I'm quite happy to give them those dates, but I actually haven't had any councillor request those dates. But just on another note, to any councillor that does want to answer it, it just seems to be a little bit of a fishing exercise here on the Heritage Reference Committee. Is there some type of issue that I'm unaware of? No councillors want to answer?
Doesn't look like it, Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
I could, if I may.
Councillor Spencer.
I only have the question in relation to the minutes for 3rd July 2019. That raised a question, and I think Director Watson addressed that.
Thank you.
Can I answer as well?
Yes, Councillor Nye.
Yes, so as we know, GB 11 207 Eastern Road, Wahroonga, the councillors unanimously voted to support that today, but we previously disagreed on this just 2 months ago, and that was over a matter of something that had gone to the Heritage Reference Committee, was discussed. The majority of councillors weren't really aware of anything, and then all of a sudden it was brought up as an urgent matter to be considered, and it appeared that council staff had been working on some sort of report, and they had it ready for a few days, but it wasn't given to councillors, and then it ended up surprising us on the night at a time when personally I didn't have enough information to make an informed decision, and my proposal to have an EGM to deal with the matter was not supported either. So there are some heritage issues such as that, which we can smooth out through processes and all of that outside of this meeting. But that gives a little bit of a history behind the heritage thing. I think if there's more advanced communication of what's happening on the heritage front, especially if it's in relation to something that may be coming up for interim heritage order, we would, or I would at least appreciate seeing it in advance rather than being surprised on the night after finding out that council staff had the report for a number of days. That's all.
Thank you. Councillor Cade, no, okay, thank you. If there are no further speakers on this matter, I'll ask Councillor Chateau as mover if she wants to sum up.
Madam Mayor, just to say that that we'll be noting in the minutes of the meeting the current questions that have been raised regarding the timing and the communication about the Heritage Reference Committee. So all councillors, can potentially be involved should they wish to be.
Well, we're in summing up now, so we can't add it to the resolution.
I'm summing up what we said.
Yes, that's right.
So, and that's really it. So if we can move on and support the officer's recommendation.
Absolutely, and the staff will then follow up. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. I now move to extra reports circulated to the meeting. General Manager.
There are none, Madam Mayor.
Councillors, business without notice subject to clause 9.3 of the Code of Meeting Practice.
Madam Mayor, I have a business item. I'm sorry, did I speak over someone?
No, you're right.
Okay. I have an item to bring up, and it's an item to put on the agenda at the Local Government New South Wales annual conference, which is why it's kind of sort of urgent, because it's due to happen before the next ordinary meeting of council. So I'd seek your indulgence to hear that late item, please.
Before you do, is this, can I just clarify, is this a request to put something on the agenda for the local government conference?
Correct.
As a late item tonight. My only concern is that I believe all the agenda items have already passed the deadline for the conference, and attendees have already received all business papers for the conference, but I might refer that to Director Marshall, perhaps for clarity.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My understanding is that LG New South Wales will still consider late items if council puts them forward. They may choose not to accept them, but they will still consider late motions.
All right, thank you for that clarity.
I can address that. Excuse me, Madam Mayor, I can address that. And I think the General Manager would be aware, because I sent him a quote from Ms. Hayes, the LGNSW lawyer, who confirmed that late motions can be submitted up to 24 hours before the start of the conference. So I'm on solid ground for putting this up late to the LGNSW.
You are indeed, so please proceed.
Do we need to vote that it's
well, perhaps you could.
Oh, I'll give you an idea of what it's about. I beg your pardon. Yes, I'm sorry. It's in my head, so I thought I'd done that. So basically, it's a notice of motion to lobby the state government to amend the Local Government Act 1993, particularly Section 370. And the late notice of motion that I'm putting here tonight is that we've previously debated the merits and otherwise of a casting vote, particularly where it's used to allow an individual to impose their personal wishes on the residents of an LGA. That's a great example of presidential democracy. The only problem is that we are not operating in a presidential democracy in Australia. Our system is a parliamentary democracy founded on the common law. In most organisations, voting such as this only occurs once a year at an annual general meeting, but for councils it happens much more regularly. This is perhaps why the government of South Australia has the legislation that was referred to in the last debate on this subject. Theirs is a provision based on the common law. We have a rare opportunity as councillors here, and that opportunity is to have a hand in shaping legislation. To correct a legislative glitch, or indeed to close a loophole, if you like, is a decent, honest and noble undertaking. To wish that the loophole remain open is to declare a position that the individual concerned wishes to be known as someone who has scant regard for the legal framework on which our nation was founded. Ku-ring-gai Council has a reputation for being avant-garde in our thinking and our actions. I ask that all councillors support this notice of motion to send a motion to LGNSW for tabling at the annual conference. I recommend that the attached notice of motion for the LGNSW annual conference be endorsed by council and communicated as such to allow the item to be tabled at the annual conference. And I forwarded a copy of the actual motion, which I don't think is, I mean, we've seen it all before in the item I brought up a couple of meetings ago. It's to tighten up the Local Government Act a little bit. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Kelly. Firstly, we have to deal with urgency for this matter. I think you've explained what the matter's about and why it's urgent, because of the conference being held virtually, but held next week. So I will now ask all councillors to vote on the matter of urgency this evening, that we deal with this as an urgent matter. And then we can debate it if urgency is ruled upon. All those in favour? That is Councillors Nye, Spencer, Pettit, Kelly, Kay, Anderson. Against? Councillors Greenfield, Chatto, Clark, Smith. I will rule accordingly for urgency. Councillor Kelly, you may put forward a motion. You're on mute, Councillor Kelly.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. I ask that this motion be tabled as printed. In fact, I sent a copy through to Sigrid to be available tonight to put up on the screen if people want to read it. I think we've all seen it. It's basically the same notice of motion that we saw a couple of meetings ago. It's self-explanatory. We debated it to death then.
Staff are just getting...
Yep, there we go.
Yep.
Now that's the actual what I just read. There is another 2-page or 1 and a bit page motion to be tabled at the LGNSW conference, and that's the one we've already seen before as well. So there'll be no surprises there.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. So I take it that you've feel you've spoken to this now?
Yes, I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this motion? Seconded Councillor Nye. Councillor Nye, do you wish to speak to this?
Oh, yes, I'll speak quite briefly. So I've got the 2020, the various motions proposed for 2020 LGNSW conference in front of me. The usual format here is it'll have a reference number, then it will say which council it's coming from and the topic that it's about. In this case, it's about the use of the casting vote and the Local Government Act, Section 370. There would be a very brief 1-sentence statement saying what it is that they're proposing, and then there are some notes from council, and I understand that Councillor Kelly has a lot of notes, but usually the people at LGNSW get a brief extract of it, so usually 1 paragraph or 2 paragraphs at most, saying what it is that the council is proposing. So it's not going to be intimidating, it's not going to be long, it's about 1/3 of a page at most. Now, what usually happens at the LGNSW conference is then someone, in this case, likely Councillor Kelly, will get up to speak on the matter, and then it goes out to the floor of all the other councillors who are attending the conference. People will put up their hands and say, you know, why they're for or against it, or propose amendments. Everything that we do here in council basically repeats at a state level for all the local councils who are participating. And I do believe that this is a topic where clarification would be nice. Is it absolutely mandatory? Well, we could live without it, but if we have the opportunity to raise it as a potential topic and just to cast the net wider and see what other councillors from other parts of New South Wales think on the matter, I sort of think, why not? So I would encourage councillors to support this. It's not going to take up much space or much time in the conference itself, especially since it's towards the end. I'm not even sure if we'll have enough time to cover it, but just to put it out there so that collectively as a group of councillors from all 128 or so councils out there, that there's collective awareness of this issue and a bit more of an opportunity for councillors from everywhere to have a think about the issues at hand. So yeah, I would encourage councillors to support this putting of this motion forward at LGNSW for consideration. I can't guarantee which way it'll go if it was put forward, but at least it is debated in a healthy way. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, can I address a couple of the points that Councillor Nye made? But for clarification, really, more than anything else.
Well, I don't think they were questions, they were comments.
No, they weren't, but I was going to add to them to clarify for who's listening, they might understand better some of the points.
Well, you indicated you'd already spoken to the...
That's fine. I was only going to be brief, but it might prevent a lot of questions, but anyway, never mind.
Well, let's wait and see if there's any questions.
Okay.
Councillor Spencer.
Thank you. Firstly, I believe the issue that triggered this notice of motion to be raised at the conference was whether the casting vote is being used to maintain status quo or whether it is being abused. Now, I do not think that the casting vote should be taken away. It is a matter of disciplining, maintaining a discipline, and all those things. However, after hearing from Councillor Nye, I'm happy to support this motion just to hear what the other councillors in the conference have to say. about the casting vote, but if I do, well, I intend to support this motion. But my reason for supporting this motion is not because of the issue of whether we should have a casting vote or not, but it is just to have it debated at the conference, because I disagree that the casting vote should be taken away. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers on this matter? I might just prevail upon the corporate lawyer. I know we have debated this matter previously within our own council, and I know Mr. Taylor had some background to the use and history of the casting vote across New South Wales. I might prevail upon him to make those comments again tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, I think that the point I made, or what I said at a previous meeting, was that the casting vote provision for the chair of the meeting in the Local Government Act is actually a carryover from the 1919 Act. And so it's been a feature of local government in New South Wales more than a century. The principle of the chair exercising the casting vote in accordance with the status quo flows from the British legislature. The nature of council power, being statutory power, is somewhat different from British Parliament, in that council is often got a positive duty to discharge a decision-making function. So the absence of a decision is sometimes going to be a failure of council to discharge a legislative duty. Probably the simplest example of that would be where there's a function in relation to determining an application for an approval under the Local Government Act or some other act, where that application needs to be either approved or refused, and to have a motion for either of those things lapse is not a satisfactory outcome. So the provision for a casting vote gives a mechanism for council to be able to, I suppose, resolve a deadlock in the votes on council. And it does serve a practical purpose, given the character of the power that council is sometimes required to exercise.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Councillor Smith is the next speaker.
Madam Mayor, I'll be speaking against this motion that Councillor Kelly has put up. I believe it's actually served Ku-ring-gai very well just of recently, actually, and believe that if the casting vote hadn't been used the way it was used, we would be in a far worse position. So I cannot support what Councillor Kelly's put forward.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly, you have your light on.
Yes, Madam Mayor, and to address some of the things that the corporate lawyer addressed, this notice of motion is not specifically about the casting vote, believe it or not. It's about Section 370 of the Local Government Act.
And only ask questions at this point. You've already spoken to your motion.
Fine, thank you.
Councillors, as we all know, we have debated this matter previously, but I think it's important when we're talking about something going to the local government conference that we all have an opportunity to refresh our memories about this matter. And I'm quite confident that the process that has been followed across New South Wales since 1919 has stood all councils in good stead. And as the corporate lawyer has said, we have a responsibility for decision making and legislative duty to ensure decisions are undertaken in a timely way, even when there are mixed opinions on the council that may mean an equal voting result occurs. Accordingly, we have now had the speakers all make comment, but there is an opportunity for Councillor Kelly, without introducing new material, to sum up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that if this is such a big threat, of course, people won't want to get it to the conference for discussion. Also, a lot of, and this, I'm not sure if this is introducing things, it's just a bit of general knowledge. Not all councils are even numbered like we are. And so these sorts of things never get discussed or debated. And so the input of the people at the conference will be worthwhile having one way or the other. And if we are so confident that we're doing the right thing, then we've got nothing to fear with putting this up for a broader discussion. And who knows, it might just come back that things remain as they are. However, I think there's merit in Ku-ring-gai Council as a council putting up issues for broader debate and discussion at the LG-NSW conference. It'll raise the flag a bit, and it'll probably demonstrate that we're probably a little bit more critically thinking than just accepting things as they are and have been forever, as if nothing can ever be improved on. So I would urge anyone who's not frightened of the fragile position they're in to support this notice of motion, to put it before the broader LG-NSW community for discussion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All those in favour of Councillor Kelly's motion? That is Councillors Nye, Spencer, Pettit, Kelly, Kay. Against, Councillors Greenfield, Chatto, Clark, Smith and Anderson. The votes being equal, I cast my vote against the motion. That is lost. Councillors, we move on now to questions with notice. Please note there is one QN1 mural on Linfield Underpass that has been answered by the staff. There are no inspections committees to be arranged. Therefore, there being no further business, I declare the meeting closed at 8:28 p.m. Thank you for your attendance.